I want to take you on a journey today, a potentially transformative journey. And I want to share with you something that I've learned, which is great things can come from difficult experiences. I'm reminded of that quote from that great philosopher of our time, Kelly Clarkson, who says, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I'm not going to talk about killing, but obviously I am going to talk about death, or more specifically, grief. What happens when you lose a loved one? It's, of course, difficult. It is among the world's most worst suffering. When I was 17, I lost. No, I need to remove the language of loss. We need to remove the language of loss. My sister died. It sent me into a period of persistent chronic grief that has lasted nearly 4 decades now. But a really strange thing started happening. I got better and my leadership improved. And recently, I've reached an age where many of my coworkers are experiencing grief, typically after their parents pass. And grief in the workplace is a very strange combination. The modern workplace doesn't wait. It can't wait. It needs immediate returns. The technological onslaught continues. There's politics, there's bureaucracies. You have to get through all of it, and you have to get through all of it quickly. And if you're an executive, the shareholders, the boards of directors, they're not going to wait for you. They need immediate quarterly returns, and they want to see strength. Grief and strength don't necessarily go together. But what I want to share with you is my journey that actually grief and leadership actually can go together, and that one can improve the other. About 7 years after my sister passed, I was in a graduate leadership program, and the professor was pontificating about leadership and how it forms and market conditions and business situations and a person's temperament and their abilities, and how given successive experiences, generally a leader grows. And one rather bright, rather inquisitive young guy, that would be me, asked the question, is there anything that short circuits leadership development? In some way, I must have known something. I must have known that something was changing in me, because the professor responded, only slightly to my surprise, no. But I have observed that some people who are going through very difficult personal situations, like grief, can sometimes accelerate the process. At the time, in the 1990s, and today, we tend to look at grief as a step process called Kubler-Ross. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Denial, anger. And the process is you go through one step, you go through all 5 steps, you graduate to the next step, and at the end of it, poof, you're healed. This was not my experience at all. And there's been a lot of research done on this recently by psychologists, by researchers, even neuroscientists, and they're starting to look at grief in some ways as a learning process, or as I like to think of it, an unlearning and relearning process. When my sister was still living, I would go to her room each day before I left the house, and I would check in with her. I would see how she was doing, if she needed anything, and I would bid her well for the day. After she departed the earth, I still returned every day when I left the house to see her, to bid her farewell. Of course, my conscious brain knew she wasn't there, but it's like my body was catching up. It's like my body didn't know yet. It needed time to figure out what was happening. I had to unlearn my world with her and relearn my world without her. And in a strange way, if you look at what's happening in the modern workplace, the technological innovations for the last 50 or so years have been nonstop. If you go all the way back to the typewriter, remember learning on a typewriter if you're of a certain age like me? And then the typewriter was replaced by the personal computer. And then, of course, cell phones and tablets and social media and the internet, all these technologies came along. And for each one of these steps, not all the time, sometimes they're complementary, but generally speaking, you have to unlearn the previous technology and relearn the new one. And right now, we are in the dawn of the artificial intelligence era. And in my job as a corporate researcher, me and my team are used to working with large, robust databases. Me and my team, we process those databases, we analyze the data, we confirm hypotheses, we tell stories, we make charts, and we try to convince the leadership to do something different, to make customers happier, to generate more revenue, to make better products. And I never could have expected that in the age of artificial intelligence, that data would come in differently through large language models, creating data, which normally gives us reassurance to confirm an important decision, is now coming in ambiguously, more complex, more curiously, in ways that is very confusing. Said another way, we're having to unlearn the large databases and relearn the world for artificial intelligence. I could have never imagined that the process of grieving and unlearning the world without my sibling and relearning it, unlearning it with my sibling and relearning it without my sibling could have impacted the technology and the technology leadership that I've experienced. There's another element to this that I want to share, which is in the days following her death. And remember, I was 17 when she passed. And shortly after that, I went to college. Shortly after that, the house in which we lived was extensively remodeled, and the room that she lived in was destroyed. And I developed a grief coping mechanism, which was simply to close my eyes and describe the room. What I would do is I would think about the way the sunlight came in, the way the heat felt on my face, the voices in the room, the smells in the room. I would think about the carpet, the drapes, the bedspread, which was a 1990s era Kmart Martha Stewart pink and paisley design, atrocious by today's standards, quite nice at the time. Anyway, you get the idea. I was training my brain to describe things that only I could see. And when I got into leadership roles, this became a very important skill. I had to explain a vision of the future. I had to explain what a customer would experience in the future. I had to explain what a product would be in the future. And because I went through this grief process and I had this grief coping mechanism, I had a better sense of articulating a vision. And again, as I indicated, now my coworkers are of that age where they're losing usually their parents. And again, grief in the workplace is a difficult situation. And they come in, they're in my office, or we're on the Zoom today, and they're not ready. They have a gaping hole in their soul. They've got grief. They want to recover. And chances are they're working with a family member or maybe a counselor to get through their grief, but are they working through their work and grief relationship? It's a little different. And what I've found, again, informed by my experiences and my role as a researcher, is that to get them through that, I need to listen to them. You can't be a good researcher if you don't ask good questions. I've learned to ask good questions, and I've learned that when you have a grieving coworker, it's a great place to ask good questions. How often have you heard somebody say, and I absolutely hate this, "I'm so sorry for your loss"? I've said it. I meant it genuinely and intentionally, and it came from a positive place, but I didn't know what else to say, so I said that. But again, this loss language, you lose your wallet, you lose your keys, you lose yourself, you don't lose a loved one. And they didn't go anywhere. They still live inside you. They're just not on this earth anymore. So it's actually unhelpful. So ask them better questions. Ask them simple, open-ended questions. The one I tend to use is, "I heard. How are you?" And you can follow that up with, "What else? Anything else? How are you?" "Okay. Yes. How? Why?" Simple, simple questions. And chances are what they need to do is they need to talk. They need to get this grief out, and they need to get it out and just process it. And the interesting thing that happens when they do this is it gives you a great exercise. Exercise your empathy. Empathy is such a buzzword in the business place today, and there's no better place to exercise it than with a grieving coworker. Because what happens is when they start talking, eventually you start hearing what they need. Maybe they need an extension of a deadline. Maybe they need more resources. Maybe they need a more flexible work environment. And what you're actually doing as you offer that empathy up is you're processing what they need, and you're complementing what they need with what you have, and you're making the enterprise stronger. As a unit, the two of you can work better than either of you could individually. That is empathy, and that is making the business stronger. So again, when my sister passed, when she left this earth, I did not know a way forward. I did not know how I would do it. But after nearly 4 decades now, I'm still not a finished product. I'm still working on it, but I understand better. And good came of it. Absolutely good came of it. I became a much better leader. It helped me develop vision skills. It helped me develop empathy. And it helped me learn and unlearn the things I needed to do to be successful. Wherever you're at in this process, and chances are you probably are grieving, or you might be soon. And it doesn't have to be grief. It could be a financial loss or a job loss. There's lots of parallel situations to grief where this can help. But I just want you to know that you can move forward. There is a way forward. And it's all about love. You loved that person, and that is why you're grieving. And I want to end this by sharing this with you. That person who left also loved you. They don't want you to suffer. You don't need to suffer. And let it be the lasting gift from them that by grieving them, you will get stronger. It'll take some time, but you will get stronger. You will be able to transform your life. And once you're transformed, you can change the world, informed by their love. Thank you.